His next gen passing chart is was what I'm looking at here. 3 of his 4 touchdowns, JT, were beyond, right at or beyond 40 yards. It looks like 40 yards downfield. That is, he had his one of his 4 touchdowns was that underneath crossing route to DeAndre Hopkins in the red zone. I believe the Titans' only red zone trip today. I think they went one of one in the red zone, which is good. But you wonder, how does a team score 28 points when they're in the red zone one time and convert one time? Well, because they just didn't need to get to the end zone. I guess the Titans were looking at their red zone woes this year and saying, we used to be so good at this. How can we got to improve? What if we just scored without ever getting into the red zone? And that's what they did today.
Big brain.
I asked Will Levis and Mike Vrabel after the game, you pushed the ball downfield a lot today, Will. I'm looking at his chart here. 10 of his 29 attempted passes were beyond 10 yards downfield, 3 of them touchdowns, and a handful of them were really nice passes that were drops, right? Was that part of the game plan? Was that something that you identified in Levis as a strength of his and you really pushed to have more of that in this game plan? Because knowing this team, JT, and this is where I want to turn it to you and maybe turn it to our audience a little bit. Folks in the comments, let me know your answer to this question. Coming into this game, JT, did you feel like the Titans were really going to be giving the key, really giving him the keys to this car the way that they did? Taking all of the child locks off of it, taking off the limiter on the speed dial, really just unbridling him and giving him the reins to operate as a drop back passer who takes a lot of shots downfield. Like, that was surprising to me that they didn't give him that rookie baby treatment a little bit.
I mean, maybe it's a little bit of hindsight bias, but I feel like that was an outcome that we could talk about, or that we talked about on Thursday's preview show about Will Levis this week. I think because of just how big his arm is, if they wanted a chance to win, they had to use what Will Levis is really good at. And that is taking those shots and being able to throw the ball downfield a lot.
You know what, JT? That's what Mike Vrabel had to say to me when I asked that question. That's what it was. Did. Yep, that's what Mike Vrabel said. Anybody who scouted him, and of course we scouted him, knows he's got a really pretty deep ball. He's got a bazooka for an arm. And so they were not afraid to let him try that today, and that worked really well. One pass in particular that I have to highlight, and JT, I don't know exactly what we're going to do with our midweek episode this week, but I have a feeling it might be a little bit to do with some film breakdown, because this is a great game to look at some of the film once we get it tomorrow. One play in particular that I know we're going to be looking at is his 4th touchdown pass to NWI, right? He navigates the pocket, leaks out to the right-hand side of the field, looking across his body into the left end zone where NWI is streaking across the end zone, running full speed. Will Levis backing up to avoid the impending defender off of his back foot, not exactly over the top, sort of a sidearm motion, really wristy, just flicks the ball 50 yards on a dot, corner of the end zone, to a receiver that's sprinting full speed for a touchdown. It was, for my money, easily his best pass of the day. It was the moment, and it was the end of the game, right? He'd done a number of things really nice up until that point. It was the moment in this game where I leaned up in my chair in the press box and said, hey there, they might have something in this guy. That's the kind of play you look at. You see those plays early from, and again, we're putting way too much pressure on the kid. I'm getting ahead of myself. I know that totally. I am, but I'm saying there's real significant upside potential here, because this is the kind of flash you see early on from the careers of guys like Patrick Mahomes, like Josh Allen, like Justin Herbert, like Trevor Lawrence. It's that it factor. And again, there's a couple of quarterbacks in recent memory you can name who had the ability to do things like this. Zach Wilson, for example. You have to remember that play from his pro day when he was coming out. He has that flick of the wrist, deep pass on a dot. And it's that kind of thing. Like, Zach Wilson's capable of the same thing Will Levis did today. The difference is, can you do it in a game? And obviously there's a big difference between Zach Wilson's career to this point and what Will Levis did today. Now, I'm not saying Zach Wilson is what Will Levis will be. I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes is what Will Levis can be. I'm saying he's got that next gear. He showed it today that you have to be an upper echelon quarterback. Now, to be that upper echelon quarterback, you've got to polish all the other things in your arsenal. You can't just have that, which is evidenced by looking at a guy like Wilson versus a guy like Mahomes. But if you have that, you've got that potential. And that's really what we were talking about pre-draft. And this is where, like I said, it is so early, way too early to be taking victory laps in Will Levis. But I just have to say, however, I am very glad, JT, that you and I and this show, we're on the right side of history. In our, we take the draft very seriously. We are draft analysts. We went to the combine. We spent months and months and countless hours scouting these players. Will Levis was a guy we spent a lot of time looking at, thinking about. And from November through to April, my opinion, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your opinion essentially was the same. This guy is probably the fourth most talented of the top 4 quarterbacks in this draft class. And he is a bona fide first-round talent. And so from November until February, we were lower than the consensus on him because there was a lot of talk about Will Levis, top 5 pick. Will Levis, the best quarterback in this draft class. Will Levis, Josh Allen upside. And then something happened, which we're still unable to identify the exact nexus point of this, but somewhere in there, February turned to March, and maybe the SEC venom permeated the discourse, because that's really ultimately what this is, right? The SEC venom that blinds you with priors, blinds you with college brain, and that beautiful enthusiasm that comes along with college fandom. Will Levis's last year at Kentucky, there were a lot of things that went wrong, and there were a lot of people that said this guy's a bum. He's Jake Locker 2.0. This guy's going to stink. He's a waste of a draft pick. You shouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. And so up until that shift, we felt like we were taking crazy pills because we were like, this guy's like a mid to late round, first round talent. He's a very good prospect. He is not better than the other 3 guys. And then things got even dramatic, like I'd say like 4 times crazier than that, when all of a sudden Will Levis is a bum. He shouldn't be drafted. He's a waste of a pick. And we're like, oh, hang on now. I thought we were too low on him. Now we're too high on him. So I'm glad that we stayed steady. We trusted our gut. We stayed with what we saw on the tape and how we evaluated the player. And again, it's too early to have a verdict here. But through one game, it looks like, yeah, we were right that this guy has those first round flashes within him. Whether or not he pans out and puts it all together is yet to be seen. But he showed today what you want to see from a guy that was a first round talent, did he not?
No, he did. And like you said, it was an off season of ups and downs. But I think even if our opinion wavered, I think what we saw today rang true. And that was that he has the ability to be what this Titans team is looking for if they were interested. I think there were other quarterbacks in this draft class that also had traits that interested this team. But ultimately, you get the guy who we did think was a first round talent in the second round, giving up a little bit of draft capital to go up and get him. And today you see the flashes that can come in the future here. This is a guy who I think a lot of people kind of, when it came down to draft night, just kind of wanted to give up on already. And I just don't think that's something that can happen, right? Because you do have the ability,
of course not,
to have something like today happen. And yes, to your point, like Zach Wilson, I think is a lot different. Like, yes, he can do the same thing that Will Levis does, but also Zach Wilson.
He was the most dramatic example I could think of, right?
Exactly. But Zach Wilson also did throw an interception on his first ever pass, and Will Levis is throwing absolute dimes. But
he really had one decision today where I was like, that was a bad one. And I don't know if you remember this or not. The pass where he's trying to throw it away in the direction of Chig, it actually hits the defender in the hands. The defender was more athletic, could have come up with it, and that could have been an interception on the day. That was a mental error on his part, and actually, I think it was kind of the right idea, just bad ball placement. But other than that, difficult to find an example of him making a rookie mistake today, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the only other really mistake that wasn't even really a mistake, because as we learned in the press conference afterwards, Mike Vrabel basically told him to do this, is on that 3rd and 4 when they were in the getting close to the red zone of the Atlanta Falcons, when he takes that sack, it causes the Falcons to burn a timeout. And that's exactly what Mike Vrabel wanted him to do if the play was not there. So, and it's just, not to get into this comparison, but it's just kind of a breath of fresh air, because you didn't see that panic that we've seen with Malik Willis and other guys who are filling in for Ryan Tannehill. You saw a guy who was given a direction and did not waver from that, did not panic and he did his job. And I think that's one of the biggest upsides of Will Levis.